right, what's up, everybody? This is episode 25 of Keeping It Local, and I am here with Mitch Brendle from Integrity Expediting. Mitch, how is it going from sunny Southern California?
Hey, it's going great, John. Thank you so much for having me on. We're enjoying some traveling, visiting some family this holiday season, so things are great.
Nice. That's definitely a great place to enjoy the holiday season for sure. Miss
Yeah,
California. I've
really
been there a
thankful.
bunch. But you are an expediter in Suffolk County.
Yeah,
So
correct.
for anyone who sees this and thinks, why do I need an expediter in California? You are right here in
No,
Suffolk.
that's right. Yeah, we're the whole reason I'm able to even do this is because we have such an amazing team that's home based, Suffolk County. That's where I spend most of my time, and our office is in Center Reach. So we have 7 more team members that are holding down the fort while I'm out for a little bit.
Nice. Great. That's a nice, I don't want to say a luxury, but that's a nice thing to have is, a team that you could count on to make sure that everything's being taken care of so you could step away for a moment.
Yeah, we wouldn't be around if it wasn't for them. They're an amazing team. Everybody has brought so many skills and abilities to the table, and I can't brag about them enough. So,
That's huge. It's funny that the word team came up because, in the midst of a deal, we're about to go under contract with a real estate transaction for buyers. And, when I explain the team, I'm like, yeah, we're the nest egg team, but that's really just me and my real estate partner. There's only two of us, but we brand as a team. But
sure.
the thing that I explain to them is like, it's not just us, it's everyone that we bring in around us, our mortgage people, our attorneys,
Right.
our home inspectors, like I always try and like shout them out on social media when we get a deal under contract, when we close, because they're so crucial because without them doing those pieces, like we would not be successful in our end of what we're doing. And like they make our world go round because like when I know when I recommend my home inspector, they're like, wow, he was amazing. Thank you so much. My mortgage people, everybody's like, yeah, they were really amazing to work with. Our attorneys are great. So it also just it reflects very well on us that we're surrounded by great people and it makes our business flourish because of that.
Yeah. No, you need it. You need it because no one person can do everything, and if they're trying to and they're trying to do it all on their own, it's only going to last for so long. We need each other. We need to hold each other up to high standards too, and expectations and good communication and healthy relationships. It's going to make the world go round. It's going to make the end result for our clients be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so then tell me what an expediter does for anybody who
Yeah,
doesn't know, because I'm sure there's some people. So give us the rundown. What is an expediter and what do they do?
absolutely. So the way an expediter fits into the world is, at least as far as Long Island, Suffolk County,
Hey, what's up, guys? Sean again. Sorry to bother you and interrupt, but if you like what you're seeing, then please click that like and subscribe button. The great thing about keeping it local is you're meeting local businesses and local entrepreneurs who provide phenomenal service. So this is almost like an initial job interview into someone that you might have in your own home to provide this job or service. So again, if you like what you're seeing, click that like button, click that subscribe button. Other than that, let's get back to the program.
Long Island and New York in general. We are a service provider that is positioned between the either homeowner or the
Hmm.
contractor, the engineer, the architect, and the town, right? So we actually do hold the registration with the town of Brookhaven to operate in this capacity. Some townships require it, some townships don't. But we're a recognized professional entity, organization that is familiar with the building permit and zoning application, zoning variance processes, so that when we present an application to the town for missing permits or missing CO or legalizing something that somebody built or even proposing new additions, we facilitate the entire building permit application process. Aside from the construction, we don't touch that piece of it, but we inform, we educate, and we facilitate the whole process.
Gotcha. Which I've seen several times in real estate is it can be a very necessary it could be a very necessary thing to have an expediter come in and make these permits and situations I don't want to say go away, but make them correct.
Resolve. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We like to call ourselves problem solvers and solution providers. We're
Mm,
gonna the problems come up, the issues arise, and we need to, analyze the situation and come up with the best route forward to get you to clearing title, to get you to having all these COs in place. That's a certificate of occupancy. A CO is basically a document, and I know I'll just define that really quick. A certificate of occupancy is a
mhm.
document that's issued by the local municipality that says the structure on the property is acceptable according to New York State Building Code, right?
Right.
And local town
Yep.
zoning code. So you get that document, that means that the town and the state, everybody's okay with this structure the way it is, right? If you don't have that document, who knows how it's built, if it's built in the right place, if it's even allowed on your property. So that's why that document, it's a single piece of paper, but it's very, very valuable and very important. So we
Hmm.
help people get those and avoid the pitfalls of, oh, just go file a permit, right? It sounds easy. Let me go apply for a permit. But that process is extremely complicated. For anybody out there who's tried it on your own, and for anybody out there who's heard it's hard, it's not just me. Like, I'm not saying that because, it's for my business sake. It's You can do it on your own. Go for it. Like, I will
Your
give you the
business
credit
wouldn't
if you
exist if it was easy. Like,
that's that's the thing too, is I'm not the only company out there that does this, right?
right.
There's multiple companies that are providing this service. So it's not like we have this unique niche thing that we're trying to
Hmm.
capitalize on. We're
Right.
trying to be as helpful and informative as we possibly can for a process that's extremely challenging.
Yep. It's that's I don't want to say you touched a nerve, but yeah, like the whole permitting situation is it's a handful. And to have somebody, if you have the time and you have someone that can do it, that's one thing. If you need to get it done, like, and you have issues, like, there is no other way, in my opinion, that you should go about the route except hire an expediter because you are experts in these permits. It's just like I could file my own tax grievance, but I'm not going to. I'm going to click and have the attorney who
Yeah.
specializes in it take care of it. And they're going to send me an email that lets me know, hey, you lost, your taxes staying the same, or you won, and we'll send you a check when it comes. Like, that's what I want. And that's, to me, like, there is a time that comes when you have to have someone like you come in and step in and make sure that everything is done right. Because when time is of the essence, you can't have mess ups. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, what happens if you mess up one thing on the permit? Like, what's the process after that? Not you, but I mean, if someone did it by themselves.
Right. Yeah. Some of the issues you could face is like if you submit an application with incomplete documents or inaccurate, like you do a set of plans that we would know is never going to be approved, but you submit this and it could take you 8, 10, maybe 12 weeks to hear back from the town just for them to tell you, hey, your plans are no good.
Mm.
Because these review times take months, right? And so you want to make sure that you have the best chance of getting through the process early in the game, so that way you're there's always going to be multiple reviews, but at least if you give them everything up front, it's not an unnecessary rejection of your
Mm.
application, and then you have to waste time and go back, right? And then there's the issue too of trying to apply for a permit for something that the town is never going to approve.
Mm.
They're just going to completely deny it, right?
Mm.
Then there's the other issue of not including everything on your application, getting a permit, and then an inspector comes to your house and sees that, you're, hey, what about this air conditioning? What about your finished basement with an egress window? What
Mm.
about the garage conversion? I didn't know. I bought the house this way. Oh, well, you're trying to get a permit for a fence and a shed and a pool. Meanwhile, you got 3 or 4 other things on your property that require permits. So and then you lose time. You have to start over,
Right.
legalizing more things. So,
Now, you might know the answer to this, and I could be wrong, but
right.
I'm not going to mention the townships, but there are certain townships that will do that, right? Well, they'll walk in and they'll say, oh, well, you have this unpermitted, this, and this. And then there are certain townships, I don't know if you know the answer if you're strictly Brookhaven, but from what I've been told, certain townships are not allowed to do that. They are not allowed to come in and point out any other things that are unpermitted, and then like, either, I don't know, do they report you to the town? Like, put me in that
Yeah.
scenario. What happens?
Yeah, I can't say I've been in a scenario. Maybe it's some townships we don't work in. Like we are specializing in the town of Brookhaven and the town of Islip
Okay.
in our company. So there may be some other towns that we don't have experience in that operate that way. But as far as Brookhaven and Islip are concerned, if you're going to go for one thing, you have to go for everything.
Wow.
And because
That's a
here's what
big
happens.
deal.
Oh yeah, it could. This
Yeah.
could be. Somebody wants to put solar on their house, and it turns out that there's 3 unpermitted structures on the property. Now they have to legalize all that to continue with the solar process. It
Mhm.
could be. These are things that unfortunately end up being deal breakers for solar companies. For an example, right? Or the same thing, like you want to put a pool in, but you have a basement in your apartment. Like all of a sudden, people use that proverbial opening the can of worms. Everything we've experienced is, if you're going to deal with one thing, you have to deal with everything, because the
Mhm.
town wants a survey that's updated that shows you the property from above. And then they want plans of the house if it's any kind of addition, and they want every floor. And then they're going to
Mhm.
have field inspectors come on site. And so if they note this, hey, there's central air and there's a pool house in the backyard that nobody ever applied for and nobody put in the paperwork, they're going to hold up the applications because of that.
So that, I mean, the amount, like you said, the amount of time that you could be set back could be, again, detrimental to your plans. And
Yeah.
cost you so much more money too. I mean, part of the reason why I do this is always trying to give cost saving tips. And yeah, you don't want to wind up costing yourself thousands of dollars more,
Right.
especially going through multiple rounds. And then, if you are doing something like a pool that's done in phases, and then you might have to stop work for a month, and then who knows when they're going to be able to come back and complete the job. And,
Yep.
so many, just like you said, it's, to me, it sounds like, if you need to think ahead when you're doing this stuff, and
Yeah.
this is about preventing fires, not even about putting
Yep.
out fires. This is about
But
preventing fires from happening.
exactly. No, exactly. And that's the thing, we get brought in after a lot of fires are discovered. Hey, we
Right,
found a bunch of
right.
problems. Can you fix this? Yeah. And for me, I'm making a lot of efforts towards a proactive approach towards home ownership. And I appreciate what you're doing, because there's, if I might put this in here, and we can come back to this if it's more appropriate later, but there's really 4 types of people that would benefit from the information and the services that we provide. And you have, number one, your individual who's facing a real estate transaction, whether it's they're selling their first home and they've been there for 40 years and they made some improvements that need to be legalized before they put this thing on the market, right? Or maybe you have a home buyer, maybe even a first time home buyer, who is looking for a house, but they don't want to buy something that's going to end up costing them 25,000 to $50,000 plus, because they have this illegal apartment and they have to upgrade their septic system and all these headaches that they're going to be purchasing. So they want to be proactive and avoid these types of situations, right? The seller who wants to fix stuff before they go to market is a good move, because you're going to save a lot of money and not have to give a ton of credit on your sale, right?
Mhm.
Or the proactive buyer who wants to be informed about what's going on at this house before they make this commitment, right? And then you have the transaction that's already happening, and we just need to come up with a game plan to fix those issues. So we got real estate transactions. We've got current homeowners who want to make improvements. Before you go planning to build a deck or put in that pool, let's do an evaluation of the property to make sure you don't have any other structures that are going to cause conflicts for that project. And here we
Mhm.
are. I don't know when this is going to air, but we're filming in December. And my recommendation is, if you want to get a pool in your backyard this summer, start now,
Mhm.
because don't try to apply in April or May and expect to have a pool by June. Not going to happen. It's going
Right.
to take months. So
Yep.
now's the time to start applying for that. You want to build out a backyard kitchen, you want to do a deck. Now's the time to get it in writing, get it in paper, so that way, come first crack of spring, we can start building, right?
Mhm.
So home improvements. Next, you have town violations. The town's out there giving tickets, writing violations for structures without COs, for illegal rentals, for all kinds of issues that people have at their home where the documents aren't lined up. So those are another people that could really, would really need our help. And then ultimately, these are the unfortunate situations that you want to be proactive for as well in the catastrophes, fires, floods, because if the fire marshal shows up, if the fire department shows up, and the town shows up, and there was a house fire, but it turns out, hey, you want to repair this house fire, but also your basement is finished illegally, and you have this deck on the back of your house that was never permitted. So now you have to deal with all that stuff. And the last tidbit I'll throw in on that catastrophe side of things, which I don't like to be, super morbid about. I'm a pretty positive, optimistic guy, but these things happen.
Yeah.
You have insurance, you have homeowners insurance. And if part of your house is illegal, I'm not an insurance agent and I'm not an attorney, so I don't give official legal insurance advice or any of that. But I've certainly heard of situations where individuals who have parts of their home that are converted illegally can experience some significant conflicts with their insurance, because you're asking them to, you're submitting a claim on something that is in a part of a house that never met building code to begin with. Nobody's looked at the electric, nobody's looked at the plumbing, nobody's looked at the drywall. So who's to say this is a legitimate claim, because it was poor management of the house? It's not a safe structure, right? And I'll leave that at that, right? So
Yeah.
that was a big plug right there, but I wanted to feed you
No,
with
I love that. I mean, that
people.
it lays it out exactly for what you need to do. And I want to start with that insurance thing, because I had clients, they were upstate, so it was, they were coming down here and they were selling their house upstate, and they had that situation where their basement was finished. They bought it finished. I believe it was a flipped house. They bought it finished. And as they got closer to closing after the appraisal, they learned that the finished basement wasn't a CO. And I think there's certain things that go in that make it an issue, like if you add heat, or certain utilities, So they were in that predicament where the home insurance was like, well, no, we won't cover that section. So they wound up having to give a credit for it instead of getting it CO'd for them to move forward with it. So it cost them a few $1,000, which and they were not happy about that, and rightfully so, because they're also, again, you're in a situation where they're moving back home from upstate down here. Every single penny from the transaction matters, because they're using that for their down payment on their next house, and it was a crazy market. So a few $1,000s to give a credit to the buyer, it didn't have a huge effect on them, thankfully, but it could have a major effect on them. And you don't want those issues when, again, it's crunch time, because everything's so hard right now, real estate, for buyers. For sellers, it's a little bit easier as long as you price it correctly, but everything is down to the wire with buyers, and you're fighting tooth and nail and making sure that you're moving the deal along as fast as possible. Any little hiccup can cause so many issues, and you don't want that, because that could be a deal killer, like you said.
Good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, let me ask you this, because I love talking about DIY stuff. And there's so many of us out there. I don't consider myself one, because I'm terrible and my wife won't let me do it. So whatever DIY I do, it's minimal. But what advice do you give to someone who is a DIYer, who, in their mind, they're like, they're wheeling me out of this house in a casket, like I'm not going anywhere. What do you say? What have you seen in your experience that people should know about, if you have any?
My top piece of advice for the DIYer is to have some patience. And,
That's why they DIY. They don't have patience.
I know that's extremely confrontational and conflictual, whatever, but that's, so what do we say, right? Measure twice, cut once.
Cut once. Yep.
Right. And if you're a DIYer, I know you've thought of that, right? But maybe we're measure once and cut twice kind of people. But when it comes to the town, and it comes to improvements, and it comes to legalities and building permits, and we've already talked about the risks of what happens when you face either a catastrophe or a transaction or some other improvement you want to make. But let's just go through really quickly. You want to build something, there's a couple things that have to be in place for it to work out well in your favor. Some of the risks you run, though, are, number one, building something that would not get approved. right? So at some
Right.
point you're going to have to tear it down, right? If you get away with building it and it's totally fine and you don't get caught in the process, you're going to eventually have to tear it down because it just won't pass, right?
Right.
I got this nice second story deck with a jacuzzi on top of it and a little cabana over it, and it's sitting on top of those beautiful little deck blocks you could buy at the Home Depot store, or at the I shouldn't at the home repair store.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fine.
The problem is those decks don't meet building code.
Right.
Those little blocks don't meet code. You have to
Mm,
have proper footings buried under the ground,
right.
mounted to the posts with the proper brackets. And then your deck has to be supported a specific way, right? And
Hmm.
I'm even reflecting on things that I've seen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You want to put a nice enclosed sunroom on the back of your house. So you just convert your deck and you put up some walls and you put a roof on it. That deck was never designed for that weight, right?
Right.
So eventually what's going to happen is, number one, you might have to tear it down because it doesn't meet code. Number two, it might actually compromise whatever it's attached to. Right? If that thing starts to pull away from your house, you can cause some significant damage to your house. And I talk about decks a lot because people build decks all the time. But if you
Hmm.
don't have that thing properly secured and bolted down and with a proper footing and foundation, it's going to pull away from the house. And guess what's going to get in there? Water. And now you're going to have some major damage, right?
Hmm.
So the other risk is you start building something and you got some neighbors that aren't too happy about hearing hammers and chainsaws, and all this equipment, whatever going on in your property, circular saws, all this banging and chopping and building. So they decide to call the town. They run up, slap you with a stop work order.
Hmm.
Now you have to stop what you're doing. You have to go to court. You have to pay extra fines for nothing. And now you either have to decide, I'm going to tear this out, what I already started to build, or since I bought all the materials already, I'm going to go ahead and get the permit for it to make it legal. Here's what the town does. For an existing structure, right? And I'm speaking for, Brookhaven right now, Brookhaven and
Yeah.
Islip. If you're applying for a permit for an existing structure, the fees are tripled. So let's say, for example, it would have been a $500 permit fee. Now it's $1,500 just because you started building it already. That's on top of the violations that you pay at court. So there's a lot of extra money just getting flushed down the toilet because you you did it and got caught, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
do people do it and get away with it all the time?
Yeah.
Right? That's
Yeah.
why I'm fixing a bunch of houses with structures
Right.
that don't have COs. But my recommendation is save your money and go through the process the right way the first time. Yes, it's going to be a headache. Yes, it's going to take a little bit of time. And yes, the town's going to be picky about some things. But once you're done, nobody's
Right.
chasing after you. You
Right.
could sit on that deck and never have a thought in the back of your head that you're going to get in trouble, you're going to lose money, you're going to have to tear it down. Once it's done and you have a CO, it's done.
Right. Well, and you think about it, just in that situation, the amount of money that you spend for triple the permits, if you have to tear it down, all the equipment that you use, the product that you have, the materials,
Yeah.
all that stuff is now wasted. I mean, you threw at that point, like if you're building a small deck, even at that rate, you're probably throwing 5-6 grand down the drain.
Yeah.
And the time that you lost building it. Because
Yeah.
someone like me, that would take like 5 days, 8 hours a day. It would take me 40 hours to build like a 10 by 10 deck.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just lost a week, 5 grand, when I probably could have hired someone to do it for a little bit cheaper and save myself the headache and make sure it was done right.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
that to me is what I'm getting from you the most. I never thought of an expediter as a preliminary step, but what it
Yeah.
sounds like is that is the smartest thing to do. Especially, I feel like where I don't want to say the town out loud, even though we've said it 5 times, but in those towns, especially Brookhaven, you've got to be on, you got to be on your game. You got to make sure that you do things right because, the permitting and everything, you hear stories all the time and we get
Yeah.
emails about, oh, I need an expediter in Brookhaven, blah, 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 immediately. And, you know, it's just about saving yourself trouble. Like in
Right.
in the end, it's like if you're the type of person that wants to prevent those type of problems and wants to not have issues, like that's who I am. That's what you should do. If you're the type of person who's like, I don't care, I'll take the risk, whatever, then you know, have at it.
Yeah, I for one, I just don't have the unlimited, bank account where I could just risk it.
Yep.
And one thing I do want to add here that we haven't touched on yet that'll kind of seal the deal on all of this. And I know, this might not be super applicable with a deck, but a lot of times I go into homes and we've got basements. And I want to talk about just quick the
Mm-hmm.
safety aspect of it. Because here's the thing, New York State Building Code exists for life and safety. And
Right.
the job of the local municipality is to enforce that code and make sure that every improvement meets that code. So just imagine with me for a minute, you've got a house with a basement that's finished and it's converted into a TV room, a playroom, a whatever, a sitting area. The kids go down there and play. But the only way in and out of that basement is up through the interior staircase into the main level of the house, which oftentimes is like the kitchen, or it's close to a high traffic zone of the home. But what's to happen if there's some sort of blockage, like a fire, or some sort of issue that happens at the top of that staircase, and you're down in the basement
Right.
and you need to get out of that house? Because the codes require you to have a secondary means of emergency escape and rescue. So you can't get out of your house, you're trapped.
Right.
So the reason why, and I just say this is just a plug for anybody that has a basement. Get your permits, don't get your permits, whatever. At least get yourself an egress window. Put an
Yep.
emergency window in that basement, so that way you can be safe and you can get out, or your kids can get out in case of a fire. And also, a fully equipped firefighter can get into your home to help put out a fire if they need to. That's why the windows have to be so big, right? You
Right.
might think, oh, I could fit out of a little window. Well, a firefighter with all their equipment can't fit in. And if your house is on fire, you want them in and to be able to put out that fire as quickly as possible.
I
So,
actually never knew that that was the reason for
yeah,
the egress window, was for the firefighter to be able to get in there. I never
yeah,
knew that. Huh.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, that's like the worst. I'm just thinking about it now. Like I do have two entrances in my basement, but that's like the worst possible, worst imaginable scenario is that
yes.
situation. Oh,
And I hate to have to go there with people, but it is a reality of what this is all about.
yeah, it's safety.
Life
Like
and safety.
I mean, that safety is still the only thing in real estate deals that like sellers and buyers, like when there's a safety issue in the house, it's like, no, you got to address it, sellers. Like
Yeah,
I mean, if you got someone banging down the door trying to get in and they're like, yeah, we're waiving the inspection, everything, then yeah, you obviously don't have to worry about it. But if you right now, a lot of buyers are, we're doing the home inspections, we're getting them done, and that's pretty typical. Um, there when the safety issues come up, that's something that sellers are still addressing. Like you got a frayed wire on the side of the house, like from coming in
yeah.
from the main line, like you got to fix it. Like no one wants to get electrocuted. Yeah, aluminum wiring, put the proper what do they call it, like the caps at the
The con, all that, enclose
yes,
it. Yeah,
yeah, like those things are still to be taken care of by sellers. And heating,
right.
plumbing, just the house has to be working obviously in those
Yeah,
regards, because safety is the most important thing. I've
right.
I always recommend now a pre-home inspection, especially with like my older sellers.
Oh yeah,
Because time has passed, you forget things.
absolutely.
Yeah. And they like, it's great when, when you're taking care of the house. It's great for them because they see that they've taken care of it. And then, some code has changed, things have changed. Like, oh, I got to put the self-closing hinges on the garage door. Like, okay, absolutely. And most of the time, like, it's great. The sellers that I've dealt with, they want a safe and functioning home
Right,
transferred to their new buyer. They want it to be
right,
safe. They don't want them to have issues. So and I think most sellers think like that. They want to get their dollar, they want to get every dime they can out of their house, but they want to transfer a good, safe,
yeah,
functioning house to the next person.
right,
And like you said, safety is the paramount, the utmost important thing.
right.
I wanted to ask you this.
Sure.
What do you not need a permit for? Like,
Well,
what can you do that you don't need a permit for?
that's the better question to ask because the list is pretty short. Pretty much, uh, painting,
Okay, makes sense.
unless you have an HOA. that requires some approvals for that. And something to be aware of too is if you're in a historic district out here in Suffolk, we have a lot of historic areas, and so
Mm,
the type of siding you put on your home and the type of shingles you put on your roof you might think, oh, I'll get away. The roofers come in and knock it out in a day. But if the historic district committee doesn't approve of what you're putting on your house, it may cause conflicts there as well.
mm,
So just to give an example, let's take town of Brookhaven because we're talking about it. That's where most of our work is. We're working on over 170 projects in the town of Brookhaven right now.
wow.
So uh, yeah, it's a lot. So um, you can put a shed in your backyard under 144 square feet. So 12 by 12 shed
Yeah.
in your backyard. You can put a couple of them, right? That's acceptable. No permit needed there. Decking. You can put decking in your backyard that is 8 inches or lower. So if it's grade level decking, you just put one little 2x4 high or 2x6 high. 8 inches and lower doesn't need a building permit.
Mm.
Um, That's kind of it.
That's it.
There's not a lot. That's
12
the
by
thing.
12 shed paint deck.
When it comes to things that are structures, like there's really not a lot you can do.
Yeah.
Even just to be super technical, changing out your roof, there's some leeway for a small percentage of doing some repairs, but technically changing your roof, redoing your siding, these are things that would classify under New York State Building Code as being improvements that need a permit.
Mm. Yeah. I
So
mean, it sounds like basically anything that's going to add value to your house, you're going to have to get a permit
yeah,
for,
yeah,
which makes sense. I mean, yeah, when you're redoing the roof, like if you're ripping it down to the plywood, like it's got to
yeah,
be done up to code and done the right way. Like
right.
it makes sense. And you know what? It's like you said, safety is the ultimate concern. And as annoying as it
That's
can
it.
be, um, ultimately, eventually, like I have friends who are, they do something and they're like, yeah, it's like, oh, you're getting it. Are you getting it permitted? Nah, screw that. Like my kids can deal with it when I'm older. And it's like, yeah, they can, but
Yeah,
they're going to be dealing it in one of two ways. Like
yeah,
if they're lucky, the market will be like it is, a crazy seller's market, and someone's going to take it
yeah,
no matter what. If
right.
they're not, and it's, kind of changing like it is now, they're going to have to hire someone like you to get it done properly and, re-permanent, or they're going to take a hit on giving a credit to someone down the road who's
Exactly.
buying the house.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's really about
It
planning ahead.
Right. The least expensive time to do it is now, right? Because permit fees go up every single year, codes change every few years, and the restrictions and the processes get more complicated every couple years. So the best time to get something legal is now, if you
Right.
if you already built it. The next best time is before you start to build. Get the paperwork out of the way, spend the 6 months to get the documents in and through and approved, so that way you can then move forward on your project um,
Right.
without having any worries. Because what's going to happen is you want to propose something, there's going to be an inspection at every stage, so there's never a question. You never have to dig stuff up. I don't know how many clients I have right now with holes in their backyards because they had to dig up the footings underneath these existing structures to
Mhm.
prove that they are actually there, right? And if they're not, like one of my clients just discovered their footings are only 20 inches deep when they're supposed to be 3 feet deep,
Oh,
right? And
huh.
it was built to code when it was built, but
Right.
whose code? You know what I mean? And
Right.
nobody inspected it, nobody observed it, and ultimately somebody has to sign off on that. And the town's like, nope, I ain't touching it until
Right.
it meets the proper codes it's supposed to. So
Yeah. So
yeah, we
even if it
see
was done to code back then, they didn't get a CO for it, so it doesn't matter.
unless you can prove, like if we have real proof that it was built at a time where a previous code was a requirement. Let's say, for example, 2020 building code, your footings on your decks had to go up to 14 inches diameter, where they used to be 12 and then they used to be 8, like they used to be smaller. So we've had some instances where we had legitimate, like either an old survey or old photographs or an old contractor's estimate, and we could compile an argument that says, look, this deck was definitely built during the time that this code was in place. Those are acceptable, right?
Mm,
But it's not often we get sufficient enough evidence on these projects where we can state, yep, it's been there,
mm,
to have somebody willing to say, all right, it's good.
right.
You got to come to the table with a lot to be able to prove that.
Oh, man. Well, you know what? It's a complicated process, and that's why, like, I like pay to simplify. Like, pay some money, keep it
Yeah,
simple. Um, m-
yeah.
Listen, Mitch, thank you for coming on. I've kept you
Thank
for a
you.
while. And
No,
I
this is a
feel like
pleasure.
we could get into the weeds on this stuff. Like we could do a much deeper dive, but I know you're on vacation. I
Yeah,
want you to
there's a
enjoy it.
lot. No, this I'm happy to do it. I am working in the mornings. I'm a couple hours behind, so I get a nice early start to my day, and been able to help people out in the mornings. So it's good. We're here. Happy to be talking with you. I really appreciate you bringing me on and getting to talk about what we do over here.
Yeah, this is the first. I haven't had the need for an expediter in my real estate career so far. Which I don't want to say it's a good thing, but I haven't really had the in-depth discussion with somebody about what it is. So it's a
Yeah,
learning experience for me.
that's great.
And but ultimately, again, like I never thought of this as hire an expediter before there's problems, and I actually love that, because I feel like, like you said, you're most of the time you're coming in, you're putting out fires, and you're dealing with things that are
Right,
done, but
right.
to take care of it beforehand is just it's a smarter thing to do, and you could save people a heap of
Absolutely.
trouble and a boatload of money.
Absolutely. You nailed it. That's exactly what we want to do. So
Awesome. All right, well, listen, they can
perfect.
it's Integrity Expediting, Town
Yep.
of Islip, Town of Brookhaven. Can you cover anywhere else, or you just focus on those 2 areas, Mitch?
Yeah, we can, but we've chosen at this time to focus on those townships so that way we could really perfect the process. I have some good relationships with other expediters who operate, up to a high standard of customer service, like I would expect. And so I do, offer some referrals to other townships, to other
Mhm.
expediters for other areas. Right now, we really strive on, volume and perfecting the system and good task management. So that's why we've really slimmed it down to just these 2 townships. So that way we can efficiently move through the process. In the future we may expand, but for now there's more than enough trouble to deal with right here.
Yeah, 160 projects going on at the moment. I'd say you got
Yeah,
plenty of trouble
and
to deal with.
yeah, we're dealing with it. So
Hey,
it's we're helping people though. That's the key. I love my team. I love helping them grow and develop personally and professionally and financially, and I love helping homeowners. Yeah,
yeah,
save time, money, and avoid headaches is
yeah.
what I like to say. So
I mean, you probably it's probably very rewarding to be in your industry because you are, like you said, you are solving problems, like big problems. So that's got to feel good at the end of the day.
yeah, it is. We've been able to help people. I mean, we're talking, real estate transactions. This is the biggest purchase or sale of most people's lives, and to be able to help them get through that with minimizing some of these obstacles as much as we possibly can. It's a joy,
Yeah.
to get to see people's lives impacted positively when they're, faced with a great amount of stress and anxiety. So I
Hmm.
really, I often I'm putting on my counselor hat, and I listen to a lot of stories. I listen to a lot of trouble that people get into, and so I just, I walk with them through it. Say, look, we're here. We're going to get through this and do it in the least expensive way possible and the least in amount of time possible. But we were able to kind of take on that burden and let them coast for a little bit while we struggle and fight and do paperwork and run back and forth and do all the madness of what needs to be
Hmm.
done to get these applications through.
Well, because I mean, that could be so overwhelming, especially if you're like, if you just, if it's a parent's house and the parents have just passed, and now the kids have to, handle the estate, and they didn't realize that there were all these issues. So you've got the emotional
Mm,
complexity of that and this situation, and then you have this mountain of probably frightening paperwork that's, you're out of compliance and it's X amount of thousands of dollars, and you're sitting there thinking, oh my God. And then in comes you guys who are like, we can handle all
Yeah.
of this and take care of it. Like, you don't have to worry about that. You worry about getting everything else together and we'll take care of this.
Yeah.
Like, that's gotta be such a relief for people.
Yeah.
And super important. Super important.
Yeah. Those are the cases that are near and dear to my heart. We
Mhm.
have a few of them active right now, and a few that we've been able to resolve, over the years. And the amount of just emotional trouble that people face, and then on top of it too, you got the sibling messes that can come in the mix of all of that too. So, my word to siblings with parents out there, just get the stuff in order as quickly as you possibly can, so that way down the line, if and when the next step, when the next steps happen, you have a game plan to move forward through the
Yep.
process, because it's going to be it's hard. Yeah, dealing with the town's hard. Getting all these applications and approvals is hard, and it's if you're trying to deal with that in the midst of a loss of a family member, it's like the last thing you want to do is have to think about that stuff. But before you know it, town's going to come knocking, and they want stuff done decently and in order, or the transaction is going to be compromised because of all these issues. So
Yep. Yeah. Town's not going to
yeah,
wait. They're not going to grieve with you.
be proactive. That's the word. That's the word, man. Be
Yep.
proactive.
Keep a
Save
folder with
yourself.
everything you know about your house,
Yes.
put it in
Yes.
there, like maintain everything. And in this way, it's
Yeah.
just boom, you have it. It's done.
Yeah.
I
And if
say
you
that
don't
all the
know
time.
even where
Like,
to start, I got you. Like, call me. We're here. We're
yep.
ready to help.
All
Happy
right.
to do it.
Yeah, that's great advice. I love it. Mitch, thank you for coming on. I think we'll probably
Thanks
have
so
to
much.
talk again to get into some more
Definitely.
detailed stuff. But
Good thing.
thank you for coming on. If you are in town at Brookhaven Town Islip and you need an expediter, you know where to find Mitch, Integrity Expediting, integrityexpediting.com.
Yep. You can check out our website. We're on, all the social platforms, just at Integrity Expediting, no spaces, no punctuation. You'll find us all over the place. So
Yep. Or I'll put your links in here or reach out to me and I'll send
appreciate
you
that.
Mitch's stuff.
Cool.
All right, Mitch, thanks again for
Thank you so
coming
much.
on. This is episode 25, and thank you very much, and we will talk soon.